Hello and welcome back, you guys, to One Piece chapter 1091. My name is Sai, and today we're going to be going over the latest chapter of One Piece and just talking a little bit about it. So with that being said, let's hop into it. So the first thing you see when you pop open the chapter is that Luffy is on the front page of Shonen Jump Weekly. It's not exactly a new thing since One Piece is pretty much the king of shonen, but it is pretty cool to see Luffy and the boys here nonetheless. And also, we see a cheetah right behind him too. Not gonna lie, for a good minute, I didn't know the difference between a leopard and a cheetah. So for a second, I actually thought that Oda was drawing Rob Lucci up here with Luffy, which would be kind of wild, you know, because I have the Rob Lucci agenda. But it is a cheetah, and cheetahs are notoriously faster than leopards, so this could be a reference to Kizaru, or Oda just has a cheetah thing going on. The next thing we see is the Straw Hats on a double page color spread, chowing down on a giant pan of pizza. Whenever we get color spreads like these, I always try to find the deeper meaning behind all of it. But 9 out of 10, I have no clue where Oda's going with it, and who knows, maybe he is just in the mood for pizza. If you look closely at some of the Straw Hats clothing, you can actually see that Oda wrote in some pizza ingredients and toppings on them. So maybe that just lists their favorite pizzas, like Jinbei, for example, has a cheese pizza, and then we have Brook with chile and jalapeno, so maybe it's just insight as to what they like, but yeah, it's a fun color spread nonetheless. Also, I do see some flamingos, so maybe, hopefully, coping, but hopefully we see Doflamingo in the near future. So we cut over to the very first page of the chapter, and we see that the marine battleships are squaring off against the Mark III Pacifistas and the Sea Beasts. And all I gotta say about this is that the Vice Admirals are showing off pretty dang well. We have Cincinnati over here straight up punching a sea beast with a giant mechanical arm. It's actually super cool, and it very much looks like the arm that Zephyr had in Film Z. With the Vice Admirals now popping into this fight, I'm really surprised Oda hasn't given us a little box telling us what their names are, especially when they show up, right? You know, Cincinnati, Chinzilla is over here, he's showing off a little bit, destroying a sea beast with a singular hit, and we actually get the name of one of his attacks, which is Steam Knuckle, but it's like, bruh, like, are we gonna have to keep on calling him Chin City until Oda actually drops his name in an SBS? Who knows, but he is showing out. And you know who else shows out? Doll. Doll is looking pretty dang good, and I'm not talking about her appearance, because she comes in here kicking like Boa Hancock, straight up breaking the face of one of the Mark IIIs, which is no easy feat. Get it? Feet, because she's kicking. Okay, so anyways, it does look like she destroys that pacifista with a singular blow, because in the very next panel, you can see a giant explosion behind some other pacifistas. All the strong marine women thus far have very different fighting styles, right? We have Tashigi with the swords, Otsuru with the wash fruit, we have Hibari with the guns, and now we have our martial artist. As silly as it sounds, just seeing these two Vice Admirals in action, I feel like even if Kizaru doesn't disable the pacifistas by the end of this chapter, they'd probably be okay. Granted, all of their ships would probably be destroyed. I feel like the Vice Admirals would put in the work and take down the Mark IIIs, which is crazy because I didn't think they could do it last chapter, but here I am, putting more respect on the Vice Admiral title. Going back to what I said earlier though, I am curious to see if Oda will ever give us names for the unnamed Vice Admirals. So we cut back over to inside Egghead Island, and we see that Kizaru and Sentomaru are still squaring off. Not gonna lie, I am really impressed by Sentomaru's showing here. When I saw him last chapter, I thought that was a man that was about to get rocked. Granted, he got rocked this chapter, but seeing Sentimaru block a couple of attacks, seeing him try to attack Kizaru and keeping up with him, it's actually really refreshing. Because Sentimaru, to me at least, felt like one of those characters that got fodderized or forgotten or pushed to the sidelines. And just last volume 106, Oda actually gave us Sentomaru's backstory in an SBS. So I thought Sentimaru would not get the polish he deserved. But lo and behold, this chapter, Oda made him look really good. And not just that, but he actually gave us that SBS's backstory in the manga, which is really nice to see. But before we get there, Kizaru's like, hey, Sentimaru, stop your foolishness, just surrender. because, you know, deep down, Kizaru doesn't want to fight this guy. But Sentimaru says, sorry, uncle, I already gave my word to Straw Hat Luffy. I feel like by this point of the story, I don't have to remind anybody about what Mihawk said back in Marineford, but Luffy just easily makes allies out of those around him. Just even thinking back to Sentomaru and Luffy's relationship on this island, they only talked for half a chapter, and here we have it. Sentomaru is willing to lay his life down because he believes that Luffy is Vegapunk's best hope of getting off this island. It's great to see somebody believing in Luffy, especially when just 2 years ago, this very same character was on the hunt for them. So during all this is when we get that Sentomaru backstory I mentioned a minute ago. And this isn't a backstory that, you know, Oda is just throwing in our faces. This is a backstory that Kizaru himself is thinking about. And man, I absolutely love this flashback for a couple of reasons. Vegapunk, you know, he's kind of like an afterthought in my mind, but baby Sentimaru is one, very adorable, and seeing Kizaru interact with him is just so wholesome. It very much reminds me of Garp versus Aokiji, when while they were clashing, Garp was having flashbacks of when he decided to take Aokiji under his wing, because we see that here, right? Sentomaru's like, hey, uncle, can you teach me how to defend Grandpa Punk? And man, I love it. Just seeing how these admirals are being shown in the final saga just feels good, right? They're not just ruthless killing machines. They're not just bad guys. They have backstory. They have friends. They feel emotions. We had that with Aokiji back on Hachinosu with Garp. We're having it here with Kizaru and Sentomaru. And the only OG admiral we're missing now is Akainu. So this kind of makes me hopeful that within the next 20, 30 chapters, we might get this same treatment for him. One line that really stuck out to me, and what was very shocking, is that Kizaru, after going through this whole flashback, he says, Sentomaru-kun, I taught you the best I could. And it's like, wait, I didn't even register it, but somebody mentioned it in the live stream, but they said, wait, if Kizaru taught Sentomaru, does that mean Kizaru technically has the world's toughest defense as well? Because that would be a crazy title, right? We saw Aokiji back on Hachinosu. I hate that I keep on bringing it up, but we saw Aokiji have a crazy fisting game, and now we have Kizaru with a big D. These admirals are insane. Back when we saw Garp and Aokiji with the battleship bag, I was like, yo, where's Akainu's? Where's Kizaru's? Turns out Kizaru just specializes in something different, and I love to see the diversity in fighting styles. And also, one more thing about Kizaru teaching Sentimaru, this confirms that Kizaru most likely has Ryuo, Advanced Armament Haki, since that is Sentomaru's specialty, which was super hinted at during Marineford because all the admirals posed up and did this and blocked a crazy attack. So yeah, we had the confirmation here, that's all we need, and it just feels nice knowing that Kizaru was that mentor to someone else. So moving past the flashback, Sentimaru gets a really clean hit in on Kizaru with his Ashigari Dokoi. But Kizaru says, hey, my defense is nothing to sneeze about either. And then he ends up shooting a massive beam, straight up grilling Sentomaru. The grill marks are so crazy, you can see the sizzle coming off of Sentomaru's body. Honestly, it's poetic in a way. Sentimaru, as a kid, wanted nothing more than food. And now here he is, becoming the food, the grilled meat, so to say. Even though Kizaru absolutely bodies Sentimaru here, you could tell he's not exactly too thrilled about it, right? It didn't make him happy, because he says, yo, Punk Records, York, the Mother Flame, I wish we could add an old friend to that list as well, of things that I should protect. The man's just doing his job, and sometimes the job gets a little bit dirty. And now I'm just wondering what his motivations are, why he joined the Marines, or even why he is willing to go this far for them. Because this chapter, we got the Sentimaru flashback, we learned why Sentimaru is willing to risk his life for Dr. Vegapunk, but now we just need Kizaru's side. I would love to see that, and I feel like that's in the cards. I feel like there's a chance that Kizaru might have a understandable backstory that we can all get behind, right? Maybe he owes a debt to somebody. Maybe the Marine saved his life. We're not too sure yet. What do you guys think about Kizaru's motivation here? Do you think there's something deeper to it? Or do you truly think he's just a man doing his job no matter what it is? So after Sentomaru goes down, Kizaru picks up his command chip. This is the first time we've seen anybody handle one. And it's small, it looks kind of cute. It looks like one of those cubes that Law will poke out of you when he takes your heart. And yeah, he just talks into it saying, hey, Pacifista, your old user is currently out of commission. You're under my control now. And while I was reading that, I was like, wait, is it really that easy? I feel like this is something that not anybody can do. Maybe this is an Admiral Kizaru thing, right? It comes with his title, it comes with his rank. Because it would be insane if anybody could just beat somebody that holds a command chip and just instantly take over the Seraphim and Pacifista. Either way though, Kizaru is now in control of the Pacifistas, and the Pacifistas are now destroying the sea beasts that were keeping the Marines at bay. So now, once that security dome goes down, we now have 50 to 49 Pacifistas to deal with. And not just that, but all the Marines and Vice Admirals who are being held up are now ready to fight. So to me at least, it definitely makes sense as to why the Straw Hats want to leave this island ASAP. There's no reason to fight an all-out war here, but they can't leave just yet until that security dome goes down. But York and her password are keeping Vegapunk stationary. But here's the thing, Vegapunk is so focused on that password that my man, Rob Lucci, comes in for the assassination. Stussy, amazing observation, notices it right away, and she body blocks the finger pistol. And let me tell you, Stussy hit Rob Lucci last time with a one-hit KO. She came by, bit him on the neck, GG, lights out, buddy. But this time around, the table has turned. Rob Lucci seemingly takes down Stussy with a singular blow. I know Rob Lucci was going after Vegapunk with that attack, but you gotta admit, Rob Lucci probably is very happy with taking Stussy down, considering he said that Stussy is on his hit list. He wanted revenge, and he freaking got it. One thing I do think is kind of funny, though, is Dr. Vegapunk's reaction. Dr. Vegapunk, after seeing Rob Lucci try to assassinate him and take down Stussy, Dr. Vegapunk is like he is shocked. Like he didn't see this coming. A world government assassin that initially came here to kill him is now trying to kill him after all this time? It's like, we should have seen this coming, right? Maybe we should cuff this guy up to, ease the tension a little bit, to get rid of the threat before it started. Or a better way to put it is that they should have pulled a Sanji. Because let me tell you, right when this goes down, Sanji, with 500 IQ processing power, grabs Nami's bubble gun, and he puts Kaku in a bubble. Before he's even a threat, before Kaku even knows what's going on, he is out of commission. Honestly, I am very impressed by Sanji here. This is a huge Sanji W in a way. Sanji, even if you're not a big fan of Sanji, you gotta admit, Sanji saved us from 10 panels possibly of Kaku transforming and fighting somebody else. Sanji is speed running Egghead Island right now. What I do think is interesting is that it seems like Kaku, like Sanji says though, doesn't really know what the game plan is. Sanji says, hey, it seems like your friend left you out of the loop, which to me is very surprising, considering how close Rob Lucci and Kaku are. Not only were they like the closest people back at Enies Lobby in Water 7, but even during their cover story, they were together like a majority of the time. And then upgrading to CP0, they're in the same squad. They're like Luffy and Zoro in a way. They're just that close. So the fact that Lucci kind of leaves Kaku in the dark is very surprising. And I do wonder how Kaku feels about all of this. Does he feel betrayed? Is he embarrassed because he couldn't do anything again? I have no clue. Because, I'm just going to skip ahead like, 1 or 2 dialogue boxes. But Rob Lucci drops a cold line and he says, you're all as good as dead now that Kizaru and I are working together. And it's like, brother, what about Kaku? Kaku's like your number 2 guy. Yeah, he got whooped by Zoro, right? Yeah, Kaku got done in by Stussy, but he's still your boy, right? I don't know. It was really interesting to see Kaku kind of pushed to the side. And here's the thing. People are saying that he might break out of the bubble, but I don't think he can. Yes, he has the Rankakyu and he could technically cut the bubble with his leg, but that's a really strong bubble, and it's meant to hold down Devil Fruit users, which Kaku has a Devil Fruit. So I think he genuinely is out of commission until somebody frees him. So back to my man Rob Lucci. And if you're wondering why I like Rob Lucci so much, here's some Sai backstory, because I see a lot of people saying, Sai, why do you like Rob Lucci? Why do you like this guy? He's a bad guy. I know that. I know Rob Lucci is on the losing team. I know he has a disadvantage. There's a good chance he will fall this arc. But hear me out. Growing up, I always wanted to be somebody like Rob Lucci, as bad as that sounds. I always wanted to be a part of the FBI here in America. And when I went to college, initially, that was my career path. That was my degree, and I was part of the FBI program. It didn't really pan out because of life, but whenever I saw Rob Lucci in the manga and seeing how suave he is, that government assassin, I was like, man, that's what I always wanted to be. So in a way, I see my childhood dreams being lived vicariously through this manga character. So yes, I am Team Rob Lucci, and that is the reason why. But moving on, we see his opponent show up because Roanoa Zoro steps in. Zoro steps in, he clashes, Rob Lucci has to use armament hockey on his leg to block the swords, and Zoro, hits him with a one-liner. Zoro says, looks like you waited for backup to grow a spine. And then they fly out of the building, putting them in a 1v1 scenario. Absolutely insane. Not the matchup I thought that they would have, to be honest. When I saw Zoro, I was like, okay, Kaku, maybe Kizaru, maybe one of these vice admirals with the sword. But Rob Lucci? Absolutely insane, and I am super excited to see how this fight goes down. I said it last time, but I do think Rob Lucci for Zoro is such an interesting matchup. Whether or not you think it's going to be a big fight, low diff, high diff, mid diff, doesn't matter. Rob Lucci being a Zoan opponent and being someone who doesn't really fight with a sword or any sharp object is kind of cool, and I want to see how Zoro handles this, right? Because most of Zoro's previous opponents all have a sword or slashing technique of some sort, whereas Rob Lucci, he really doesn't. He fights with his fists and his finger pistols. So I want to see if Zoro's going to be like slicing his fingers off or something. But either way, super hype fight. And I genuinely cannot wait to see what happens next chapter. But I do gotta say though, as much as I like these matchups between Zoro and Rob Lucci and Luffy versus Kizaru, in a weird way, I don't know if Oda is going to show us the entirety of the fight. Because the Straw Hat's main goal is to escape. We don't need to take down Rob Lucci or Kizaru. They're just people we have to hold off until Vegapunk gets the dome down. So theoretically, Vegapunk could get it down and we could all just blast off the next minute without having to defeat these opponents. So this could be a stall match. This could be an all-out fight. I'm not too sure yet, and I would love to hear what you guys have to think about that. Do you think we are going to take down everyone here? Or no, do you think we're just gonna stall out until Vegapunk can guess that password? Anyways, on to the last page. We see Kizaru coming up, right? He sees the Vega Force 1 carrying the 1000 Sunny, and Kizaru's about to go in for the kill. He says, oh, I'm gonna stop that real quick. But that is when Luffy comes in. No hellos, no nothing, just comes in with a kick against Kizaru. Kizaru, obviously, being a guy who taught Sentimaru defense, ends up blocking the kick. And Luffy drops another hard one-liner, just like Zoro. Vice captain, captain, they're going at it. And Luffy says, we're 100 times stronger than we were 2 years ago, Kizaru. And I love that. One, I love the callback. I love that Luffy never forgot. Two, I love that this is what Shaki said to Luffy back when they met Rayleigh, right? Shaki was like, oh, you don't have to worry about Rayleigh. He is 100 times stronger than you boys. And boom, Luffy's like, no, we are that guy now, right? Rayleigh was clashing with Kizaru. I am him now. And three, I love this because Luffy is putting respect on Kizaru. He remembers his name. He's not giving Kizaru some funky nickname like, oh, here's the light guy. you know, here's the guy with orange sunglasses. No, he says Kizaru. So he is putting that respect on the fight, and I'm super excited to see what happens. And here's the thing. They're both in base form. We haven't seen what Kizaru can do. If there's one thing I hope happens this fight, I really hope that Kizaru awakens his Logia fruit, and this would mark the very first Logia awakening of the entire series. I know some people have speculations that maybe a Kainu Aokiji or maybe even a Nell were awakened at some point, but in the latest Road to Laugh Tale, when Oda was going through awakenings, he did not include a Logia awakening section. So to me, that kind of confirms that we haven't seen one yet, and Oda hasn't dropped any details about what it can or can't do. So I am super excited because Logias are just as rare as mythical Zoans. Currently, there are 12 Logia devil fruits out there, and guess what? There's only 11 mythical Zoans. In terms of rareness, they are neck and neck. So I'm super excited to see what Oda will be cooking here. So now, it's time to talk about some giant elephants in the room. 1. Are any allies going to show up? And 2. What the heck is going on with the Blackbeard pirates? I feel like we talk about this every week, so I'm going to keep it short, sweet, and simple on how I feel about both of those topics. As far as allies showing up, I think that is very plausible. I think the Straw Hat Grand Fleet, I even think the Revolutionary Army could make an appearance here, simply because a whole day has passed, and the newspapers have been flying around the world that Luffy is on Egghead Island and he is barricaded here. So if you were Sabo, Dragon, or any member of the Grand Fleet, you would see that and you'd say, oh, my boss needs help. And they would immediately come by. They have a full 24 hours to get over here. So I do think it is very possible that someone is on the way. And now the Blackbeard pirates. Nowhere in sight. No marine ship has seen them. The sea beasts aren't fighting them. The pacifistas didn't say anything about Blackbeard. Where the heck are they? Honestly, I have no clue. And if I were to guess, I would say that they're not even here. Usopp, the resident eye specialist, has a great view of what is going down on the bottom floor of Egghead Island. He even sees the marine battleships and sea beasts battling it out. But let me tell you, my man Usopp hasn't seen the Blackbeard ship. Nobody's seen it. I genuinely do not believe they're here anymore. Whatever they wanted, I do believe they got. The only 2 members of the Blackbeard pirates that have not been shown up until this point are Katarina Devon and Lafitte, the stealthiest of the Blackbeard crew. So if you were to tell me after Egghead Island that they came in, nobody noticed, they stole what they wanted to and left, I would believe you. One more honorable mention I do want to talk about is a character that everybody remembers, but they don't really talk about because it's another one of those things that gets talked about every week. But Caribou, he's here, he's on the Labo phase. He's possibly watching Kizaru fight Luffy. What is that man doing? I have no clue. But I do feel like he's going to steal something because that's pretty much what his whole character is about. But yes, with that being said, what do you guys think about all of this? What do you think about the fights? What do you think about Caribou, the Blackbeard pirates, and the possibility of allies showing up? But now, with all that being said, it's time to go over to the comments from the previous video. The first one says, I have a theory. The Blackbeard pirates snuck onto the island to steal green blood. So Blackbeard could potentially have more powerful devil fruits without needing to hunt down the owners. I love this theory a lot, so much so I'm going to include it in my next video. But I like this because the Blackbeard pirates are notorious for hunting down devil fruit users. They are a collector of sorts. So them coming by, taking green blood, would be super smart, especially since Blackbeard witnessed what green blood can do firsthand back on Amazon Lily. So he knows about green blood. He knows about its existence. Imagine the next time we see the Blackbeard pirates, they're all over there like injecting green blood in their body. That would be a crazy upgrade. The next comment says, this has me so hype. I cannot wait to see Kizaru be fully serious and show how much of a force to be reckoned with he is. Then for Luffy to be a Chad and extreme diff him and show how much he has evolved since Sabaody. Him dominating Rob Lucci, Cuphead style, was fun, but I'm also looking forward to see Gear 5 actually be pushed to its limits, and how Luffy will grow and develop it from here. Also, I wouldn't mind seeing Luffy grab and chuck some light beams like he did lightning. I agree. I am super excited to see what Gear 5th looks like if it's pushed to the limits. Like Lucci, it pains me to say it, it was a no diff, right? Luffy absolutely Fortnite danced on Lucci's body. No difficulty whatsoever. Kaido, I'd say that was pretty high diff, right? Luffy was still smiling by the end of it. Luffy was having a grand old time versus Kaido. I want to see what a fight start to finish in Gear 5th actually looks like at extreme difficulty. And I also want to see if Luffy can actually last that long. Because we've seen the repercussions of Gear 5th. During the Kaido fight, Luffy had to stop at one point. He turned old like a freaking shriveled up raisin, and then he came back at full power. And then after he fought Lucci, the same thing happened. I wonder if that repercussion will be too much for Luffy to last the entire fight, because Kizaru is at 100% health. This man is not damaged whatsoever. This will be a long fight. So can Luffy's Gear 5th last that long? We will see. Next comment says, we're seeing a lot of possibilities here, but let's not forget about Bonnie and her accessing Kuma's memories along with the huge robot. I think the incident is going to be that the huge robot will be turned on and the blockade being destroyed in a Joy Boy-like fashion. Maybe Luffy gets big and puts armor on. I don't know. Also, Bonnie could play Kuma's memories all around the world. Egghead is like another Ohara. Last time Clover was killed. This time, I think the new Clover - Vegapunk will let the cat out of the bag and they will try to take him out, but of course, the Straw Hats ain't gonna let that happen. And I agree with the last part. Obviously, I agree with all of it, but the last part specifically because Big News Morgans was listening in on the conversation last chapter. He knows that the government wants to take down Vegapunk for the information he has. I'm just gonna say right here, but if you want to sell a newspaper, you need some hard-hitting journalism. And I think Vegapunk, Bonnie, they could provide just that. They could drop major bombshells about the Void Century. And here's the thing. Vegapunk knows about it because Shaka actually dropped some lore to Frankie, Sanji, Nami, and Robin and Usopp. I kept on adding the ands there. You know, like, I'm just continuing that sentence. But Shaka dropped a lot of Void Century lore a couple chapters back, and we didn't see what he said. We simply jumped over to their reactions. So, we know that Vegapunk has that scoop in him. All he's missing is a Big News Morgans. And same with Bonnie. Bonnie accessing Kuma's memories and learning that her dad was manipulated by the world government. That would be another huge scoop. Big News Morgans would have top seller after top seller if he were to come here and pick these boys up. Or if Big News Morgan simply met them outside or at Elbaf. I feel like that's also a possibility, right? I don't know what kind of journalist wants to go in the middle of a war. Actually, all of them do. Besides the point. Yes, Big News Morgans, I think, is going to be absolutely massive. And same with the huge robot. You know, that was another talking point I wanted to bring up. But I don't think Vegaforce 1 is going to be the robot that takes him out of here. I do think that we will have to use that big robot, and we will have to find that ancient fuel source. And a lot of people are now saying that it could be Cola, because Vegapunk last chapter was very impressed that Frankie's robot and just everything in general that Frankie has built is fueled by Cola. So maybe Cola is the one fuel source that Vegapunk did not test out. And that would be insane if Frankie just so happened to stumble across the ancient fuel source like that. And now the last comment of the video, it says, if Oda is retelling Sentimaru's backstory, this oddly gives me hope for Kid in Elbaf getting a redemption arc. Hey, I am a huge fan of this too, and even Zoro. Because Zoro also got some backstory dropped in an SBS. In an SBS, Oda revealed Zoro's parents and his grandfather and how he's related to Ryuma, the sword god. And that's an SBS. Beforehand, whenever something gets revealed in an SBS, we're like, oh, it's never going to come into the story. But here we have it. Oda dropped Sentomaru backstory in an SBS and he brought it back in. I think Zoro has a chance to get some more backstory, and going on to Kid, I think he has a chance as well. Because Oda dropped Kid's backstory, and I believe Volume 103's SBS. So there's a good chance that that Kid backstory could come into play if we ever see him again. But with that being said, hey, thank you guys so much for stopping by. Please be sure to like, comment, and sub down below. It would really mean a lot. This chapter was great. There is a break next week, though, so keep that in mind. And yeah, shout outs to the Patreon members and channel members here on the side. You guys are amazing, and I will catch you guys later. Sai, signing out.